My name is Hanafi. In this section, I will tell you about why do we choose the lottery as an object of our analysis. There are a lot of famous literary works which get many responses from all over the world. One of them is The Lottery by Shirley Jackson, an American writer. She was born on December 14, 1916 in San Francisco, California, and grew up nearby in Burlingame. She attended the University of Rochester and then to Syracuse University, where she became a fiction editor for a campus humor magazine. After graduating in 1940, she moved to New York City and began to write professionally. Her works appearing in such publications such as The New Yorker, Red Book, The Saturday Evening Post, and Ladies' Home Journal. The Lottery is published in 1948 in the New Yorker publisher. The Lottery is a short story which starts as a seemingly benign account of an annual event in a small town of America. Takes a dark turn when the event is revealed to be a gruesome sacrifice. After published, the New Yorker gets many emails from its readers. The response of its readers is described as a greater than any story previously published and is largely negative, many of them expressing both their confusion about the meaning of the story and also anger over its disturbing ending. Also, many of them cancel their subscription to the magazine. The lottery is banned from many schools, libraries, and even South Africa. The nation banned this story completely. It's almost certain that South Africa banned this story because they feel it to be an anti-apartheid story. For nearly 30 years after it was published, this story was rarely censored by schools. In 1985, this changed with the rise in the censorship groups, and it reached the top 48 most censored stories. The reason of this is because people understand these stories as an attack on a tradition. This can make people uncomfortable, especially for those who believe in that tradition. More recently, these stories have become more popular, but there are still many teachers and librarians are not allowed to give this study to their students. Based on the facts above, we know that there are still many people out there who get misunderstanding with this story. So, we are here to analyze what exactly the meaning of the lottery is. We are going to look at the quotes in the story in order to make people know and understand the exact meaning of this story. To analyze it, we are using the quotes theory of social and interpretative quotes by Jakobson.
My name is Nadya Nurul Fatimah. In this section, I will tell you about the theory of Jakobson. Our research used quotes theory from Jakobson. Jakobson was one of the greatest linguists in 20th century. He was born in Russia and he was a member of the Russian families. He was a principal founder of the European movement in structural linguistics known as the Prague School. Jakobson elaborated that an idea that interpretation of text depends on the existence of quotes. In his communication model, he said that quote marks all of the communications that make it possible for the sender message to be understood by a receiver in an act of communication. So, in this part, quote has important role in communication. Quotes organize signs into meaningful systems which correlate signifier and signified. Through the structural forms of syntagmatic and paradigmatic. Codes also represent a broad interpretative framework used by both addresser and their addressers to encode and decode the message. So in the communication model of Roman Jakobson, there are in Roman Jakobson communication model, there are addresser and addressee, and also decode and encode process. So addresser is someone who sent the message to addressee, and addressee who received the message. And the message itself consists of decode and encode so that they can communication in a good way. There are three types of codes. The first one is social codes. Social codes divided into four types. There are verbal language, binary codes, commodity codes, and the last one is and the second types of code is textual codes. Textual codes divided into four types. The first one is scientific codes, the second one aesthetic codes, the third one genre, rhetorical and stylistic codes, and the last one is mass media codes. And the last type of codes, there are interpretive codes. This research used two kinds of codes. The first one is social codes and the second one is interpretive codes. Social codes is a code that include bodily codes and behavioral codes, and interpretive codes cannot be separated from perceptions. Both social codes and interpretive codes communicate the social identities such as the work they do, the way they talk, the clothes they wear, and their hairstyle. And each type of codes will be explained by my friend is Fatimah later in the middle of the video.
So hello everyone, I'm here to continue the explanation of social codes and interpretive codes and their types and their examples. The first one is social codes. There are four types of social codes as explained by the previous speaker. It is a verbal language, bodily language, commodity language, and behavioral language. Verbal language appears in spoken or written text. The research is proposed to identify the identities by analyzing the verbal codes in the story. It is analyzed through the narration by the author and the conversation between characters. And then we have bodily language. You must have familiar with the term body language, don't you? One of the social codes that is able to analyze the body language of the character is the body language. And then we have commodity language, or what we're familiar with is the fashion. In this section, we will analyze a social identity through the fashion of the characters, such as how they dress, hairstyles, and what they use as an accessories. And then we have behavioral codes. In this section, we ought to identify the social identities through how they react to a typical situation or their immediate reaction toward the situation or the event. And then we can move to the textual quotes because we are not using this method to analyze this story, so I will only give you brief explanation about textual quotes. Textual quotes usually appears in, of course, it is in a written text because it's a textual. One of the example is the scientific quotes. It is usually appears on a scientific research or scientific text, such as maths, basics, chemistry. And then we have mass media quotes. You usually found these quotes at photography, videography, magazines, or newspaper. And then next we have interpretive quotes. Is the complicated one because we need to analyze a very detail of the story. To be more specific, interpretive quotes are appear on how the character or the authors sees the world through the story, and how they interpret the world is affected by their perspective and ideology. 1. Perspective quotes. Perspective quotes ought to analyze the perception of the character toward the situation. Each character, of course, they have different perception about the situation affected by their background and environment. And then we have ideological quotes. It is analyzing the ideology among the society in the story. By analyzing this, the ideology quotes, we will able to acknowledge the background of the character by through what they believed in the story.
As my friend said in the previous video about social codes and the types of social codes, this part will be the analysis of social codes in the lottery short story. And this part will be elaborate two types of social codes, that is verbal language and bodily language. Verbal language of the story can be seen in the utterance of each character. For example, the character of Tessie shows that she is from lower caste who protests against the lottery, and she also gets the discrimination from people, and everything that she said it will be ignored. She also shows that the lottery itself is unfair from her utterance at the end of the story. And the second example is from Mr. Summer character. He has big control of the lottery itself, and it can be seen from his utterance that will be followed by others, and it seems absolute. And the second types of social codes is bodily language, and bodily language of the story can be seen from the act of each character. The first character is Mr. Graves. He is from lower caste. That can be seen from how he always follow Mr. Summer and obey every rules from him. And the second character is Mrs. Hutchinson, that has high caste. It can be seen from how people treat her when he want to passing through the crowd, and people start to separate and let her through. That's all for analysis of verbal language and bodily language. The next explanation will be explained by my friend Hanafi.
The next quote is behavioral quotes. Behavioral quotes consist of ritual, protocol, games, and also role playing. In the story, the lottery is such ritual. The lottery is a ritual in which someone will be thrown by stones by the rest of people until she or he dead. There are lists of head of families, heads of household of each family, and also the members of each household of each family. Uh, those names will be put in a box, and then an important role like a headman will take one of those names randomly, and the name that show up will be thrown by stones until she or he dead. According to the story, there is a commodity coach which exists in it. A commodity coach itself consists of the fashion of the character. In the stories, it's mentioned that the children bring pockets which filled by stones. Also, women wear faded house dresses and also wear sweater. Women wear sweater because the season in the story is pretty nice. It is summer but not really hot, windy, and basically it is a nice season for everyone. And women wear faded house dresses represents their life that they live in a village in which they spend their time by working and treat their family.
So we will jump into the discussion about perceptual quotes in the story. Uh, People thinks that this tradition is a usual. People in the story, character in the story, thinks that this tradition is a common or usual tradition, while actually it is an extreme tradition that involves murder. They kept doing the tradition like it is just a common thing. Like it shows that they hold the tradition, an extreme tradition, that an extreme believer to a tradition without considering the impact that it is against humanity, of course. The only person to recognize that it is an extreme tradition is Mrs. Hangenstein, or we call her Tessie. It shows that she is the one who acknowledged that the tradition is outdated, involving pointless violence, and it's inhumanity action. And we have ideological analysis. Uh, the first point of this analysis is the character who calls him as the old man Warner, as the oldest man in the city. He thinks that those who do not follow the tradition will be unblessed by the nature, by saying that lottery in June, corn is heavy. If we sit here when Warner says this actually emphasizes that the rituals of lottery is believed to gain more profit or benefits uh, or an overflow harvest in a harvest season. But here Warner does not explain why the lottery could affect the harvest. Then we move to the character that is Stones, Mrs. Hankinson or Tessie. She is trying to show her disagreement through the process of the lottery, and later she is the one that is being murdered or being stoned. In the stoning event, Tessie is the one that became the scapegoat for the rituals, for her rebellion against the tradition. Her rebellion is channeled away from the capitalist society by the rituals and its ideology into an anger. This anger later is directed into the victim, which is Tessie. So basically, she is the victim of a capitalist social community and their tradition, extreme tradition. So finally, we will jump into the conclusion of this video. I will repeat again what I said in the beginning of this video. Quotes in semiotic is representing a social identities or a social dimension of the society in the story. The lottery implied social codes and interpretive codes, both social codes and interpretive codes, to shows to the readers that this is a story in that era, that people in this era is having this kind of society, this kind of Community. Social codes is codes that occurs in the environment of the story indicating a social identities such as fashion, language, and behaviors. Interpretive codes are appears on how the characters or the authors sees the world. How they interpret the world is affected by both perception and ideology. Social codes in the story can be seen on how the citizens dress, how they talk to each other, and their immediate reaction toward the situation in the rituals of the lottery. Meanwhile, the interpretive codes in the story is the perception of the character in the story toward the tradition and their ideology believed by the citizen. The lottery is a short story that describes the operation done by capitalist society to fulfill the need of fulfilling tradition. In a research by Alberto Suardi in 2010, he suggests that this short story, The Lottery by Shirley Jackson, is an ideological mechanism. It serves the society hierarchical social order by instilling unconsciousness fear to those resisting the order or stand against the tradition or the rules. Finally, we have come to the end of this video. We hope you enjoy our video and we hope that this video will be a help to any of you to be more to acknowledge more about semiotic codes. And we'd like to say thank you for watching our videos.
Thank you for watching our
Thank you
video.
for watching our video.
We will like to appreciate if you would appreciate our works by liking or subscribing this video. I'm Fatimah. Thank you.